one of the most suspenseful IPO processes ever. We had heard that the SEC was looking into how they were handling revenue recognition. What did you guys actually mess up here? What was the problem? Turns out that was correct, but in the other direction. Actually, that they had understated their revenues.
Not really monopoly status yet, but certainly I think will be well on its way to at least accomplish platform conglomerate status in relatively short order. Here is Roblox. Roblox has probably run arguably one of the most suspenseful IPO, now it's actually a direct listing, processes ever. We were dangled and teased with a Roblox IPO at the end of 2020. Then it was now a direct listing, which was supposed to happen in February. And now it looks like it's going to be March. And the story just keeps getting juicier and juicier. This was easily my favorite platform IPO pick of 2020, hands down. That was a no-brainer. It was supposed to be like $8 billion. I was over the moon. Still am very bullish on the company. We'll see where the direct listing nets out, though. But Roblox says revenue was higher than previously reported and pushes direct listing to March. Okay, you read through this CNBC article and it says here, we have identified a material weakness in our internal control over financial reporting, which resulted in our restatement of financial statements for the years ending, for basically the past few years. They said we have a material weakness in our internal controls over financial reporting. We had heard that the SEC was looking into how they were handling revenue recognition. If you don't remember, or if you're not familiar, basically Roblox has these two classifications. They have essentially kind of what they call bookings. So when people purchase Roblox Robux, their digital currency, they report that, but that isn't considered revenue, right? Because essentially, think of it as just transferring, say USD into Robux, and it's just a currency. But that's why Roblox is cash flowing, right? They're just spinning off so much cash because guess what? Someone's paying them money, let's say US dollars here, to purchase Robux, which is just made out of thin air. It's Roblox digital currency. So their free cash flow is phenomenal for this reason. But Roblox didn't want to report that as revenue, right? And so they went into a lot of this. We covered it in depth when we were first covering their IPO, end of 2020. And so revenue is when you actually consume the Robux, right? When you buy that cape or that item or whatever it is with your Robux, right? We had heard that their revenue recognition protocol was coming under scrutiny by the SEC. Turns out that was correct, but in the other direction. Not that they had overstated their revenue, actually that they had understated their revenue. So, I don't know, the CNBC article left me wanting. So we dove into their actual amendment that they made and filed with the SEC. And here is the juice. Page 33, my lucky number. So here's this, we have identified a material weakness, and then we restated all of our stuff, right? And you're like, well, what does that mean, material weakness? This is all just a bunch of gibberish. And here, a material weakness, if you want the definition, a material weakness is a deficiency in our internal controls over financial reporting. You're like, okay, well, what did you guys actually mess up here? What was the problem? So finally, they get to it. The material weakness was due to ineffective controls over the identification of the performance obligations in our revenue recognition methodology that resulted in an error where we previously identified a single performance obligation to provide an integrated and enhanced online experience via hosting services performed by the company over the time period for which the user is estimated to access the Roblox platform. You kind of got to read that a few times, right? Resulted in an error where we previously identified a single performance obligation. Now what they're saying is this shouldn't just be a single performance obligation. This is now, either multiple or this is a recurring performance obligation because it's tied to hosting. Upon further review, we concluded that we have a performance obligation to provide customers with the ability to acquire, use, and hold virtual items on the platform over the period for which the respective virtual items are available to the user. So if their obligation is actually being extended, not shortened, how does that compute with revenue increasing, not decreasing? If your obligation is actually longer, not shorter, then you should be recognizing less revenue, not more, right? Because you should be recognizing revenue when you perform the service, when you perform the work. So to me, what this is saying is the work actually needs to be performed continuously over a variety of time, a longer period of time than they'd previously accounted for, which means, again, to me, this would be a revenue adjustment down. So now they're going to be hiring more people and putting in more process. And then we may discover additional weaknesses in our system. It really doesn't make sense to me. This is the results of this. Revenue through September jumped 70% to 613, where it was previously reported at 68% to 588. So it went up by 2%. It went up by $25 million. I don't get it. And I'm diving into the SEC filing, and it just doesn't make sense to me. I still think the company is strong, but I think they need a better CFO. I don't know. What's going on here, guys? You had to service the customer longer and recognize revenue over a longer period of time. But then your revenue went up and not down. I mean, there's got to be something else that came up, and that was maybe one example of the issue. Now, all of this is now resulted in them pushing the direct listing into March. Direct listing, because they also did a fundraise. They raised over $500 million, which was essentially what they were planning to raise from the IPO. They raised that at basically 4x the valuation they were planning to go public at back in 2020. And now they're just doing the direct listing, which effectively gets them the same thing, right? It effectively allowed them to raise the money they were going to IPO at to fundraise, right? But they had, 75% less dilution because they 4x their valuation. And then they're going to get the liquidity from being a public company by doing a direct listing. But I don't think maybe they will. I don't think they're actually going to fundraise and do the direct listing. I think they're just going to just do the direct listing and get the liquidity for their shareholders. But that is new, right? Historically, you actually weren't able to both fundraise and do direct listing. That was actually an update that the SEC and the New York Stock Exchange really trailblazed to allow for both to happen, a fundraise and a direct listing to coincide with one another. That used to kind of just be reserved for the IPO. Despite what the bankers tell you, they're not happy about that rule change. Hi, this is Alex from Winner Take All. Thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the content. Feel free to leave a comment, ask us questions, and definitely make sure to join us on our next live stream.